What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality Podcast. I'm your host. I am Caitlin Kenneth Smith. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about being in control of your life. And I want to start off by asking you a question. And that is the title of this episode is, who is in control of your life? And I want you to actually put some thought into this, right? Because right off the bat, most of us would say, of course, I'm in control of my life. I get to do whatever I want. It's my life. But then when you actually take a step back and you start to really process this question, you probably find yourself conflicting it a little bit. Like, oh yeah, I'm in control of my life, but when I'm at work, I have to do exactly what my boss says. Or I'm in control of my life, but when I get scared, maybe fear takes over a little bit and takes control. Or how many of you can actually say that you've never let another person dictate your decisions in your life? I know that being a human, we've probably all been there where, I don't want to label it as peer pressure, but maybe you felt some sort of pressure or you felt a desire to please somebody where you did something that maybe didn't align with your goals, didn't align with your morals, or just didn't feel right to you, or didn't help you in any way, shape, or form become the person that you want to become. Or maybe it held you back from being the person that you want to become just because of what somebody else said or what somebody could have thought of you. So I asked this question today because, well, it's the first of the month, a new month, and it's on a Monday. So it's like a kind of perfect little equation for a lot of people to get started on their shit, right? It's July 1st. It's a Monday. The 4th of July is in a couple days. So it's a holiday week, but it's like a weird holiday week where next week is going to be like the weekend where people kind of celebrate it. And we're over halfway through the year. So I think a lot of people right now, if they haven't already, are probably doing a little bit of like self-reflection, asking themselves like, how has the first 6 months to 7 months of this year gone for me? Am I staying committed to what I said I would do on January 1st? How far off am I from the goals that I set for myself on January 1st? And I don't want you to loom on this thought because you can't go back in time. Like if you're nowhere near where you want to go or where you want to be, or you're completely off track from where you thought you would be when you made that commitment on January 1st, it doesn't fucking matter because you can't change the past. But what you can do is you can change the future by changing what you do now in the present by taking action. The cool part about life is every single day, we wake up with an opportunity to make any sort of a change or shift that we want to make in order to become the person that we dream of becoming. So if you wake up every morning and you look in the mirror and you're unhappy with who you are, whether it be physically, emotionally, mentally, you're dreading going to work, you hate what you do, you kind of just go throughout your days not living but existing. Every morning that you wake up, you have the opportunity to do one thing that can change everything for you. And that could be as simple as, I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm struggling with depression. I never move my body. I go and I sit at a desk for 9-10 hours a day, come home, sit on the couch and watch Netflix, binge on social media, eat food that doesn't necessarily make me feel the best, but it's easy and convenient. What if today, instead of waking up in a rush to get to work, you woke up a little bit earlier, went on a 10-15 minute walk to start your day, drank like 20 ounces of water before you drank your coffee, and then had, nice solid protein-rich breakfast with eggs and fruit and some toast, and then you went to work. How much different would your life feel if you made that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go on a 10 to 15 minute walk. Because usually if you start to shift your life in the direction that you want it to go, it kind of becomes a domino effect. So, for example, if I have a client, I'm not going to throw the kitchen sink at them when they first begin. If I have somebody who's literally never been on a fitness journey before, they have no idea where to start, their diet is a lot of fast food, for example, it's not good, they know it, they're not moving, they're not sleeping very well, the first thing that I would have them do is just one thing that seems manageable for them. Because then when they can start building consistency and momentum off of that one habit and behavior, they start to think, okay, well, what else can I do? Or I'm the person now who wakes up and goes for a walk. So they start to see themselves as also the person who, eats a little bit more healthy and has foods that fuel the body a little bit better than what they typically would eat. So they start to seek other things that would align with the person who they're starting to shift to become. And a lot of that is mindset, right? As we develop new habits and behaviors, we start to see ourselves in a different light. And through action, we start to believe that we can do the things that we want to do. So many people never take action or take action very inconsistently because they lack the belief in themselves. So maybe they have this spark of motivation at one point, and that sparks the action, and then they lose the motivation, they stop taking action, and then they start basically talking shit on themselves. You suck, you'll never do this, you're fat, you're ugly, you're unsuccessful, why can't you just stick to anything? Does this kind of sound familiar to anyone? Because I'm pretty sure every single person who's listening to this podcast has had a moment in their life where if they've talked crap to themselves, and that narrative needs to change. Because if you continue to talk shit at yourself, then that's what you're always going to believe. You're never going to believe that you can do anything more than what you're telling yourself. So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's a quote that I stand behind. It's from one of my favorite books, The Magic of Thinking Big. If you've never read that book and you're struggling with this, that's a book you need to read. I've read it 6 times. It's one of those books that you kind of always come back to because you almost need that spark or that reminder of, okay, I can do big things so long as I believe. And the only way to build belief is to take action. So I ask you again this question. Who's in control of your life? And on today's episode, I want to kind of talk about 3 different scenarios that I've had, or 3 conversations that I've had, whether it be with myself or with a client or with somebody very important to me, that kind of go in that direction of, wow, who is in control of your life? And when I say who, I don't necessarily mean a person. I mean an emotion as well, like fear or anxiety or depression. Now, going back to depression and anxiety, there have been countless studies coming out recently that have showed that exercise, strength training, walking, movement has been a better intervention for depression compared to therapy and medication. So if you're somebody who is depressed, who is anxious, I challenge you to go and get the body moving. Give your body some good, healthy, whole foods that make you feel good. Do things that make you feel good in true self-care. True self-care isn't sitting on the couch, binging on Netflix, eating chocolates. Do we need moments like that? Yeah, I mean, to an extent. I'm not somebody who really loves to do stuff like that. I love to sit with my husband and watch a good movie on Netflix, but I'm not going to sit there and binge eat on chocolate because that doesn't serve me and it doesn't make me feel good. What we put into our body and what we put into our minds is generally what we get out. So if we're putting shit into our body and we're putting shit into our minds because we're reading the news, we're going on social media, and we're looking at things and comparing ourselves to other people who aren't real, we're putting shit into our minds. And you get to control what you put in your body and what you put in your mind. And you also get to control how you respond to the things that are out there that you're going to see, because it's impossible for us to completely clean ourselves of all of the bullshit that's on the internet. You're going to come across it at a time, right? You're going to come across all these negative headlines or something like that. But it's under your control to say, you know what, I'm not going to look at that today. Or I'm going to do what I can, and the only thing that I can do is pursue personal excellence. Personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. Andy Frisella says it. I just speak it. And I live it. But I say all of that because I feel like a lot of people blame their depression on, I'm just so unfulfilled at work, which is true, for sure. Like, if you don't have fulfillment, then it's really easy to fall into depression. However, ask yourself also, if you're in a place like this where you're super depressed and super anxious, what am I doing to counter that? What am I doing to make myself feel more alive? Because it's up to you to seek and chase fulfillment. Nobody can do it for you. Now, as far as some of the things that I want to talk about today, who's in control of your life? One of the biggest things that has always been in control of my life personally is fear. And I'll be the first person to admit that I've allowed fear and anxiety to stop me from living the life that I want to live for a very long time, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this podcast and passionate about sharing this message, because I allowed my past, I allowed my shit, my fear, my anxiety, the things that have happened to me that I cannot change, to hold me back from becoming the person that I want to become, the best version of myself, and living the life that I want to live, and being the person that I want to be, and building this beautiful life for my family, and making the impact that I want to make. Fulfillment, for me, is creating an impact and helping other people become the best version of themselves, and I do that through leading by example. And I wasn't always this way, right? Like I said, I used to allow fear and anxiety to hold me back from being the person that I wanted to be. When I was a personal trainer, when I first got started, instead of going up and talking to individuals on the floor and trying to book personal training sessions, I would hide in the locker room and cry because I was so scared to do it. If you were to tell that girl who was crying in the locker room in New York Sports Club on Wall Street that she was going to have a podcast, that she was going to impact so many lives through coaching, through the powerhouse mentality, through her social media, I wouldn't have believed you because I didn't have the belief in myself. So if you're somebody who doesn't believe in themselves right now, understand that there is hope, but you're the only person who can change it. I didn't just get over the fear of talking to people. The way that I got over that fear was to face it head on. I started getting outside my comfort zone and talking to people and being awkward and failing and feeling like an idiot. And then the more that I did it, the less that I cared what other people thought, because it wasn't about me, and I was making it about me. It was about helping the person on the other side of the conversation. And that's how I look at it now. If I'm afraid to go up and talk to somebody who I could help and make an impact on, then that's on me. I'm making it about myself, and I'm being selfish. I can help that person, so that's my pursuit now. And the same thing goes with training. Like I talk about how over the last 6 months, I've really dialed in the mindset of my training because I've let go of the fear of failing. I used to fear failure so much in workouts that if I had a workout where it was, for example, an EMOM where I had to complete a certain amount of work in a minute, and I would look at it and say, I don't think I can do that in a minute for 10 rounds. I don't think I can do that. I would literally dread the workout so much. I would be shaking before I hit the clock, and I would fumble and fall apart because I already doubted myself going into it. Because when you start to say, you know what, I'm probably going to fail this, your mind goes to a place of, well, why bother trying? Instead of what I do now, which is, okay, this is going to be challenging, this is going to be tough, but I can handle it. And if I can't handle it, and if I fail, that's okay too. Because failure is part of any journey. I say it so often lately, but the most successful people are not the people who don't fail. The most successful people are the people who fail the most, but get back up the fastest. Now, when you're down on the floor, though, you do have time to process. It's kind of like when a boxer gets knocked out, or they're not knocked out, but they're on the floor, right? They get a 10-second count to get back up. Use that 10-second count, but it's 10 seconds for a reason. It's not 20 or 30. Keep moving. That's what matters. So over last week, I had a really, really full, challenging week of training. Like, it was pretty brutal overall. Physically, yes, but mentally as well, because there were a lot of pieces where I faced that, wow, I think I could fail this. And I like to say that with my training and with life, I like to have a quote-unquote near-death experience every day. And by that, I mean, like, I'm being over-dramatic. But I like to push myself into a very high heart rate and really challenge my mind and body every single day to prove to myself that I'm capable of more. And I think that there is so much benefit from seeking adversity and seeking discomfort every single day. And it's something that I talk to my clients about, is that every day I want you to seek discomfort in some way, shape, or form. And that could be through a workout, or it could even be through a conversation, or it could be doing something that you never thought that you could do, that you face that fear. So last week, I had a couple of pieces where I literally looked at them and said, wow, I could fail this. And I even had one piece on Tuesday, where in the programming email from my coach, in parentheses, he put, if you fail a minute, because it was an EMOM, if you fail a minute, you take a full round off and then continue from where you left off. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, I actually might fail this piece. And it's been a while since I've actually failed a piece. There have been a lot where I come very, very close. But I read that too, and I thought about it. And now that I'm saying it out loud, it's a pretty damn good analogy for life, right? If you fail a minute, take a full round off, reset yourself, and keep moving from where you left off. It's a really good analogy for life. So shout out to my coach who had no intention of that. You made it to the podcast. But that piece in particular was an EMOM of 30 minutes, where it was the first minute was a 12 cal ski, which is very hard for me at my body weight and size to do for 10 rounds. Second minute was 15 hanging leg raises, and the third minute was 10 burpee box jump overs. So to give context, I probably was finishing the 12 cal ski with 10 seconds left in the minute. So I had literally 10 seconds to just walk over to the bar or to the rig to jump up and start the knee raises. By the time I was done with the leg raises, I had like 30 seconds, 40 seconds. So I had a pretty good amount of rest during that minute. And then the burpee box jump overs jack your heart rate up pretty well. And I was done with those in like 30, 25 seconds. So the one thing that was getting me was the ski. And my heart rate got really high on that movement. But even going into the workout, I didn't have that fear that I did in the past. And it's something that I really recognized and actually spoke to my coach later with, because I was proud of my effort on the workout where I didn't fail it. And I was able to continue throughout the rest of my training, which was a lot after that, and perform very well. But I was more proud of the fact that I wasn't shaking and I wasn't terrified to face this workout. I was content. I said to myself, if you fail, it's okay. Like, you just take a minute off and you continue on. But once I finished 2-3 rounds, one was like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. But at the same time, I kept reminding myself, this is hard, this is challenging, but you can handle it. You've already proved it. You've done 3 rounds. You can do 10. You can do it. The only thing that's going to stop you from doing it is if you ease up when it gets uncomfortable. And I had a similar thing happen to me on a workout on Saturday where it was same basic thing, EMOM, 30 minutes. Minute 1 was a 12 cal ski. Minute 2 was a 12 calorie assault bike. And then minute 3 was a minute of rest. So I knew that it was literally going to be 12 cal ski. I would have just enough time to walk over to the assault bike and sprint to get that 12 calories in under fatigue. And I did the first round and it hurt. I did the second round and it hurt. Third, fourth, fifth, and it was getting really hot. It's fucking hot in Florida, and that heat is taking so much out of my body. And there were so many times in that workout where I kept saying to myself, like, this is tough, this is challenging, but you can handle it. But I did have like that little bit of doubt in the back of my head that was like, yeah, but it's hot. Yeah, but you're tired. Yeah, but it's Saturday. You've already had a whole week of training. And it's really easy for us to allow those thoughts that are in the back of our mind to become at the forefront of our mind and take over and really take away logic and allow emotion to take over. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're human and you're allowed to have that happen. But the important thing to do is to recognize when it's happening and take back control. Because in the past, if I was faced with those thoughts, I would allow them to cause me so much anxiety that when my heart rate got up to 180, 185, 190, 195, when the heat gets up, the heart rate gets real high, I would crumble and I would panic and I would fall apart and I wouldn't be able to maintain and I would fail the workout. There are a lot of really good athletes out there, but there's a difference between people who are great at what they do and great at their sport and great athletes and those who are incredible legends. And the biggest difference between the two of them is the mindset. So I just brought up a reel. That's why you heard that music. So I made a reel 2 days ago, and I'll read the caption because it's really related to this. And it says, I don't care who you are when you're comfortable. Who are you when things get really uncomfortable? When your heart rate is above 180, do you stay calm and execute, or do you panic and fall apart? Most people crumble. Hold strong. Doubt will flood your mind. It will be screaming at you to slow down or stop. Repeat after me. This is tough. This is challenging, but I can handle it. This is the hardest part of training. You can be a phenomenal athlete, but if you can't hold it together when your heart rate is very elevated, the workout isn't feeling the way that you anticipated it, or your body is extremely fatigued, you'll never win. Are you willing to suffer a little bit more? And that's exactly why the powerhouse mentality around our logo, it says, are you willing to suffer just a little bit more? Because in order for you to become the person that you want to be, you have to be willing to suffer when it gets really painful. Most people hold off the gas because a lot of the times they allow fear to take control, and fear is in the driver's seat and they're in the passenger seat. In the past, when I was faced with workouts like this, I would literally modify them before even trying because I was afraid to fail. Before even trying, I would say, 12 calories assault bike, I can't maintain that. I'll do 11. You know? Or I had like an EMOM piece that was just a skill piece for 10 minutes where it was 2 wall walks and a 30-second handstand hold, and I did 2 rounds of it, and I was like, there's no way I can finish this. And I did. I did not fail 1 minute. But before I even started, I was starting to think in my head, like, wow, I would have modified this before. I would have said, you know what, I can't do that. There's no way. I would have chalked it up and I wouldn't have tried as hard. But now every workout that I go into, I fight because I know that I'm capable of more than I could ever imagine, and so are you. And the reason why I'm not cocky, there's a difference between being cocky and confident. I'm confident in my ability because I fucking work hard at it. And if you work hard at what you do, you'd also earn that confidence. It's cockiness if you don't do the work and you start talking about it. It's confidence if you do the work and you earn it. And I feel like a lot of people have fear take control of their life because, well, 2 things. One, they think that this fear is so omnipresent and it's so powerful when it's not. It's kind of like when you were a kid and you thought that there was a monster underneath your bed and then you checked and it was actually just a pile of clothes. That's literally how fear is for us as adults. And a lot of people are holding on to the past. They're hung up on the handful of times where things went wrong versus the thousands of times that it went right. Our mind is programmed to remember the bad shit. So we have so many days that we have led up to this moment in our life, but we only remember the worst of them. We actually have to think deeply to remember, like, the best of them, right? We all have, like, those highlight moments, like, oh, my wedding was the best day of my life and things like that. But if I were to ask you, like, what is the most memorable day of your life, a lot of the times it would be a negative experience. Now, the second thing is earlier this week, or later last week, I guess, on a Thursday, I had a conversation with a client, and we were talking about lack of advocating for yourself and how she's been struggling with migraines, and based on everything that she's been experiencing with these migraines and the amount of time that she's been experiencing them for and kind of like the trends that are associated with them, it sounds like it's very hormonal related. And she went to the doctor, her PCP, to be able to see, okay, can I get a prescription for some headache medicine? But more importantly, she wanted to get some blood work done so that she could see, hey, what can I do to make myself feel better without the medication, right? What are some things that I can do, lifestyle related, diet related, that can help improve my symptoms? And the only way for us to know what that would look like would be, okay, because we've tried so many things. Don't come at me and be like, it could be this, it could be. You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to play one on the internet, right? So we got to get some blood work done to see actually what's going on underneath the hood. Because when we know what's going on in the body, we know the different markers and we know where her hormones are, that's when we're going to be able to make educated decisions on, okay, what can we do next to see if that's going to work, right? It's a lot of trial and error, but if you have hormones and you have levels, then you know a lot more than if you were just shooting in the dark, right? So it's important and imperative of her to get blood work done and hormone testing done because they've gotten much worse, the migraines, right? So you would think that that would add a sense of urgency to the PCP to be able to say, okay, let's put in to get blood work done. Let's get some hormone testing done. However, the PCP will not or would not approve blood work. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. Not to her, but I've worked with so many people over the last 10 years, and I'm a huge, huge believer that we should get blood work done, especially when we're not feeling our best. But even when we are feeling our best, because it's important for us to know what's going on regardless of how we're feeling. Because if I'm feeling really good, then I want to know what my blood markers look like so that way I can have a spot to compare them to for when I get it done when I'm not feeling good. Because everybody's going to be different. The ranges that they give you, those are based on averages. They're not based on you. So I believe that if you're not feeling right, you should be able to get blood work done. But I believe that you should be able to get blood work done regardless of how your body is operating. Or, I'm sorry, regardless of how your body is feeling, because you want to know how your body's operating. And I understand that there's like insurance things, and I'm sure there's costs that go into it from a doctor's perspective. So if you are a doctor and you're saying like, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about, I get it. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the process of ordering blood work and hormone testing from a PCP's perspective. However, I hate that it's like that, you know? And all we can do is continue to advocate for ourselves. However, so many people don't. So many people hear that their primary care physician will not approve blood work, so they say, okay, I guess I can't get blood work done. And then all of a sudden, they feel really, really bad, and then they get the blood work done because the doctor finally approves it, and now they have cancer. Weird how that works. But, again, this isn't the first time I've seen it. It's literally something that happens to most of the people that I coach. They go to try to get blood work done. The doctor won't approve it because the symptoms aren't as terrible as they need to be or whatever the reason is. So I actually go through a third party to get blood work done. I actually use Joy Wellness. It's $99 is where they start for like a basic panel. And a basic panel is usually all people need unless there's something really going on. But really helpful because there's no insurance involved. You pay for the blood work. You get a consultation. So somebody goes through the blood work with you. For my clients, I'm a functional nutrition. I'm certified functional nutrition, so I can actually read blood work. But it's nice to have somebody else also who works with so many people to be able to give them more insight as well. Not an ad, not a sponsor. It's just a company that I use and I recommend to all of my clients. So I'll put the link down below for anybody who is looking for blood work. It is a women's only company, Joy Wellness. However, they do have a men side to it called Blocks, and it's really good. But one of the reasons why I talk about this is because, again, so many people don't advocate for themselves. So they allow other people or other circumstances or other things to control their life. And your health is yours, and it's a very serious thing. So if you're allowing somebody else to get in the way of your health, that's a problem. At least in my opinion. But the one thing that I want you guys to always remember is just because something's common doesn't mean it's normal. And I say this to my ladies that I coach all the time because so many of them come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I have such horrible periods. Like, I can't get out of bed. I'm sick as a dog for a week. The cramps are so bad. I bleed so heavily. And I'm sorry, men, if you're listening to this, but I mean, there's no fucking filter on this podcast, and you should know that if you've listened. But they go to the doctor, and usually the doctor says, oh, that's normal. But it's not. It's just common. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. So always advocate for yourself. Now, the third thing is a conversation that I had with somebody who I love. Somebody in my family who is very important to me. And I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't want to throw them under the bus because they would probably be very mad at me if they figured out that I spoke about them on my podcast. However, they don't listen to my podcast, so it doesn't fucking matter. However, again, so I was on my walk on Sunday. And usually on my walk, I take time to call this person and have a conversation with them just because I'm busy throughout the week and this is like the one time that I really have to be able to connect with them. And earlier in the week, this person sent me a text message and it said, "Hey, I wanted to ask you if Stone had any idea of anything going on, if there's going to be a World War III or anything like that that's happening, because this is the reason why I can't sleep at night." And that's what that person said. They cannot sleep at night because they're thinking about the possibility of World War III. And that's kind of crazy. Because think about how you're literally taking years off of your life because you're thinking about something that you literally have no control over. No control. The only thing that you can control in that situation is being your healthiest, pursuing excellence, being prepared, and being the best version of yourself and living your life to the fullest. Are you really living your life to the fullest if you're constantly worried about something so much that it's preventing you from sleeping at night? Something that you literally have zero control over. So I told that person to stop watching the news because it's toxic and they have an agenda to promote. They're trying to get views. It's their job. That person said, "I do not watch the news. I was on social media, and there are so many horrible things on social media," she said. The news and social media are basically the same thing. There's so much fear-mongering on social media, it's actually disgusting. And again, because it comes from somebody's trying to promote an agenda, because they're trying to sell you something, because they're trying to get views, because they're trying to get likes, because they're trying to get their business to grow. And they don't care who they take down during it. That's why there's so much bullshit about nutrition on social media. Fear-mongering sells. Fear sells, right? Now, the other thing that this person and I were speaking about was how they were so unhappy in their life, and they were always so negative. They always talk very negatively about themselves, but also about their situation. How they can't control it. It's not their fault. How they're too old. And they really just have zero value for themselves. And I hate that because I care deeply about this person and they have so much value to share with the world, but they're holding themselves back because they think they're too old. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough opportunity. And it felt like that person was putting on a fucking pity party for themselves. And that's what I said. I said, you're giving control and you're giving power to everything else but to you. Where the finger of blame goes is where the power also goes. So if you're pointing the finger of blame at everybody and everything else around you, you're giving power to that thing instead of pointing the finger back at yourself and taking power and taking action. There is nothing nice about feeling sorry for yourself. Honestly, like when somebody feels sorry for themselves, that's a very big turnoff. Because we have control and we have power to be able to change the circumstances that we're in. No problems, only solutions. Is there more difficult times in life where there's going to be there are different seasons of life and there's going to be times where you're going to have to just accept the fact that hey, we're going through a really rough season and that's okay because we're going to just hold steady and we're going to hold tight. We're going to get through this. But sometimes that happens, right? We're almost in a season of maintenance. Maybe we're not growing in certain areas of our life, but we're holding strong, right? And I'm a huge believer that experience and adversity, pain and discomfort are our biggest teachers. And no matter how horrific of an experience we go through, on the other side of that experience, we will meet the strongest version of ourselves. One thing I said to this person too, while we were talking about how they're stuck in a job that they hate and they're too old to move to a different job and they're in a job where they're not valued, they can do so much more. And I said, every single day, somebody gives up on their dream. Every single day, thousands of people give up on their dreams. And that person said, yeah, I know. I gave up on my dream a really long time ago. And it was 40 years ago, in fact, that this person gave up on their dream. 40 years ago. Talk about having no regrets. Talk about having regrets. That person gave up on their dream 40 years ago because somebody told them that they did not have the grades as a freshman in college. As a freshman in college, you have fucking 4 years to bring those grades up. Somebody told them as a freshman in college that they didn't have the grades to be able to become what they wanted to be. Their dream at the time was to become a veterinarian. That was all they wanted. And 40 years ago, they still talk about that regret. They talk about how they regret listening to that person. But they listened to that person. And they never became a vet. And I hate to say it, but they never will. Because they're stuck in this mindset. And I care very deeply about this person. Like I said, this is one of the most important people in my life. And I hate seeing it. But we did have a good finish to the conversation where it was like, okay, I'm going to try and be more positive. I'm really going to try. Because the last thing that I said to them was, hey, I know you hate this job. I know you're stuck in this job. And I know you think that you have no other opportunity. And I always tell them, Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was like 60, 70 years old. I can't remember the exact age, but he was old, and he created an empire. So there's really no limit to what you can do. The only limiter is you. The last thing I said to them was, well, what if tomorrow your boss said, we're done, closing the doors, everybody has no job anymore? What are you going to do? And I think that moment, that person really thought about it. And I hope that actually helped them put into perspective of like, if your back's against the wall, you will find a way to make it happen. So put your back against the wall and make it happen. We only get one moment at every single day. I started recording this podcast 37 minutes ago. You will never get that moment 37 minutes ago when you heard me say, welcome to the Powerhouse Mentality. You'll never get that back. It's gone. Today, you only have one shot at it. It's gone after that. Many people die at the age of 25, but aren't buried until 75. It's one of my favorite quotes by Ben Franklin. Because it's scary how true it is. So instead of just going throughout your life and living it, or I'm sorry, you want to live it. Hold on. Backtrack. Instead of going throughout your life and just existing, I want you to go throughout your life and live it. Live the life that you want to live. Don't do it because fear is in the driver's seat. Don't do it because your doctor or the government is in the driver's seat. Don't do it because somebody else who told you couldn't, that person's in the driver's seat. Do it because you're fucking in the driver's seat. If fear is driving your life right now and you're sitting in the back seat or you're sitting in the passenger seat, start doing some fucking backseat driving. And then just lift that fucker out of the driver's seat and you slide on in. Take control of your life. And go out and do one thing today that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.